He was once a man, walked the earth, had children, lived and died like us. But death wasn't the end. He was taken, transformed, and seated beside the throne of God. They say his name is Metatron, the angel above angels, the voice of God. If you too are the angel above angels, check out Pantheon Apparel, a clothing brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. The scriptures are filled with deaths, pages lined with names, genealogies, the inevitable, and then he died. Kings fall, prophets perish, even the most righteous are buried in earth. Death is the one boundary that binds every story. But in the middle of these names, one stands apart. Enoch, the descendant of Adam and the great-grandfather of Noah. Then comes the line that breaks the pattern, a single strange sentence in the book of Genesis. Enoch walked with God. Then he was no more, because God took him. Just absence. For centuries, that line haunted those who read it. What does it mean to be taken, to be erased from the world by something greater? The text doesn't explain. It leaves silence, and in that silence, imagination rushed in. Later mystics said that Enoch, the man who vanished, had not died at all. He was lifted alive into heaven, where no mortal was meant to tread, and there something unthinkable happened. The man was unmade, his flesh stripped away, and in place a new being was formed. He was transformed into an angel of unimaginable rank. Metatron. He was said to sit beside the throne of God, to shine with fire, to wield authority so immense that even archangels bent before him. The idea unsettled theologians and terrified mystics. If a man could become that, what did it mean for the order of creation? What did it mean for the line between mortal and divine? Enoch had walked with God, but when he vanished, something far stranger walked back in his place. When Enoch was transformed into Metatron, he was placed before the heavenly books. These were books described by mystics as living records, vast, eternal ledgers in which the deeds of all creation were preserved. Every act of man, every thought of the heart, every whisper in the dark was contained within their pages. Nothing was lost, nothing overlooked, and at the center of this endless task sat Metatron, pen in hand. In rabbinic writings, he is called Sar HaPanim, the Prince of the Presence. It meant he stood closer to the throne of God than any other. His duty was to write, and in his writing to define the order of things. Archangels like Michael and Gabriel were feared as warriors and heralds. But Metatron's power was subtler, and in many ways greater. He held the record itself. The implication was chilling. To write in heaven was to give permanence. What Metatron inscribed became the standard by which judgment would fall. A man's sin or righteousness must pass unnoticed, but not in those pages. Once written, it was eternal. Some texts went further still. They said Metatron wrote with letters of fire, the same flaming script through which God had first spoken creation into being. To write, to sustain. The cosmos itself was stitched together by those words of fire. If the record were to falter, if the book were to ever close, creation itself might collapse into silence. For this reason, some feared Metatron more than any other angel. Warriors could be resisted, heralds could be ignored, but the scribe's gaze could not be escaped. Every life was already in his ledger, waiting for the day it would be read out loud in the court of heaven, and unlike other angels, Metatron had once been human. A man who had been lifted from the earth and given the authority to preserve or condemn the memory of mankind. The rabbis who wrote of him were unsettled by this. The boundaries blurred uncomfortably in Metatron's figure. He was the angel above angels, but also the shadow of humanity's own destiny, proof that flesh could be remade into fire, that mortality could cross into eternity. It raised a question few dared ask. If one man could become the scribe of heaven, what other secrets might lie hidden in the silence of God? Among the visions there is one that stands apart. Metatron seated upon a throne beside God. It was unthinkable. Angels served, not sit. The throne was the symbol of absolute authority, the seat from which creation itself was ruled, and yet Metatron was placed there. Some writings go further still, saying his light was so great that even the hosts of heaven faltered before him. Angels who looked upon him mistook him for God and bowed in fear, unable to tell the difference between the Creator and the one who had been raised from flesh. Rabbis wrestled with this image. To imagine a man transformed into an angel was already unsettling, but to imagine that angel enthroned alongside God threatened to shatter the boundary that held heaven in order. Was Metatron simply a servant raised to impossible honor, or had a human rivaled the divine? Some suggest that the confusion was so severe that Metatron himself had to be marked with fire, punished with blows, a reminder to all of heaven that he was still a created being. He was also a voice, the voice through which the words of God passed. Prophets described hearing not the Almighty directly, but Metatron, the angel who stood so close to the throne that his speech carried the weight of heaven itself. To hear him was to feel the command of creation strike, immediate and absolute. This made him unlike any other in the heavenly order. Michael fought wars. Gabriel carried messages. Raphael healed the wounded. Their authority was recognized, but always as servants. Metatron's role was different. His voice was taken as God's own. Writing gave him a title to reflect this power, the Lesser Yahweh, the angel of the name, a name that was bound to the act of creation, too sacred to be spoken aloud by mortal tongues. To tie it to Metatron meant his words carried the same authority as the Creator's. But this closeness carried danger. The rabbis who pondered Metatron's place in heaven recognized the peril. If his voice was indistinguishable from God's, then where did the messenger end and the master begin? Was he simply repeating what it was given to him? Or did the act of speaking confer power of its own? The accounts that survive do not answer the question. They leave only the weight of dread, that a voice which once belonged to flesh might now command prophets, speaking not from earth, but from a place that even heaven itself struggled to define. Later, Metatron was linked to a symbol known as Metatron's cube, a geometric figure said to contain the hidden blueprint of creation. Its network of lines holds within it Platonic solids, 5 perfect shapes that philosophers since antiquity believed were the building blocks of all matter: earth, air, fire, water, and the cosmos itself. The cube is a living map of reality. Its lines and intersections represent the unseen lattice beneath the world, a pattern woven into chaos to hold existence together. Gazing upon it was said to reveal the architecture by which the universe was first spoken into being, an image of order so pure it bordered on the heavenly. Occult writings describe the cube as a key to higher states of knowledge, used in meditation to pass beyond the limits of the human mind. To trace its lines was to follow the pathways of creation itself, entering a space where matter, number, and spirit converged. At its center stood Metatron, the one who gave the figure its name, positioned as the guardian and guide to its secrets. This changed how he was understood. As scribe, Metatron recorded what had already been done. As voice, he spoke what was being willed. Through the cube, he was tied to what holds everything together, the structure beneath reality, the framework without which nothing could exist. He was no longer a servant of God's order. He was imagined as the hand that pressed against the pattern itself. Yet the cube was a peril as much as a revelation. To step into its design was to trespass into the foundations of creation, a place mortals were never meant to stand. We are warned that the figure could elevate the mind, or shatter it. Those who sought to unlock its secrets risked being unmade by the very structure they tried to comprehend. In Kabbalah, Metatron stands as Keter, the crown of the Tree of Life. The tree is a diagram of 10 sephirot, spheres of divine emanation through which creation flows. At its summit is Keter, the point nearest to the unknowable source where mortal thought cannot reach. To place Metatron here was to make him the last presence before God, the threshold between creation and the infinite. From this position he is imagined as both bridge and barrier, for those who seek to climb the tree, rising step by step through wisdom, strength, beauty and understanding. Metatron is the guide who can open the way, but he is also the guardian who bars the path, the flame that keeps mortals from overreaching and being consumed by what lies beyond. To approach Keter without him is to risk collapse in the face of a light too great to endure. Kabbalistic writings sometimes describe him as the chariot of Shekinah, the indwelling presence of God. Through him, that presence could descend into the world. At the same time, he was the angel stationed at the crown to hold back those who would climb higher than permitted. Without such a guardian, human ambition would tear through the order of the tree, breaking the balance that sustains creation. This double role gave him a hopeful and fearful reputation. Calling upon him was to seek the guidance of the highest angel, a pathfinder through the mysteries of existence. Yet he was also the last obstacle, the one who could deny entry, casting the unworthy back into the lower realms. Writings also warned that the danger was existential. Forcing passage beyond Metatron was to tamper with the structure of creation, as the tree was the very framework of reality. His body was said to stretch across heavens, his form burned with fire, eyes flashing like lightning, wings layered upon wings until number meant nothing. Rivers of flame poured from him, garments of glory clung to a body that thundered when it moved. To see him was to feel the world buckle. Light so intense it erased the edges of things and left only overwhelming presence. That presence produced confusion. A story preserved in rabbinic dispute records a vision where one who ascended declared, "Surely there are two powers in heaven." The claim was blasphemy. The reaction shows how close Metatron came to the line no created being should cross. The effect on prophets and visionaries was destructive as well as awful. Some describe falling to the earth, limbs unmade by the force of sight and sound. Others report that his speech rearranged perception itself. A word passed, a thing felt different, as if reality had been renoted. That is why accounts insist his appearance and voice are dangerous, because they can unmake the fragile lines that keep the world coherent. Enoch was taken, and what came back was not a man. Metatron is proof that humanity can be remade into something the world cannot contain, not mortal, not divine, but a terror that belongs to both.